Good morning and welcome to the SitRep for today, the 5th of July, 2022, which is the 5th of July here in Australia. I think it's still the 4th of July in the US of A. So if you're watching there, happy 4th of July. Here we are. This is the situation report, the SitRep, where I go through news stories in the past 24 hours that I've seen that piqued my interest, and I have a chat about them from the perspective of how we best prepare ourselves for the coming uncertainty of the future. Or no, it's not really coming anymore, is it? It's here. I just noticed you can see my thermal top underneath. It's this stripy thing, and it looks super dorky. If you're under some illusion that I'm in any way cool, now you should be disabused of that notion that I am in no way a cool person. I'm extremely dorky. So here we are today, 5th of July. We're into the second half of the year now. We're through the looking glass, as it were. I finally finished off Stranger Things season 4 last night. I'm a bit messed up. Lots of stuff happened there. All I can say is anybody who can rock out Metallica solo to Master of Puppets deserves a goddamn medal. That's what I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say about that show. It was epic. Happy 4th of July for anyone in the USA. A little bit of tragic news, which I'll get to today. Unfortunate events that have unfolded in the US today around 4th of July celebrations. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that in no particular order because I haven't gone through any of my stories today. So let's just jump into it. By the way, on the YouTubes, I'm back on the normal camera, on the shittier camera. It was just, I was trying an experiment yesterday. It did work, apparently. It got uploaded, but I couldn't see anything. I didn't know if it was getting uploaded. I couldn't see anyone's comments or anything like that. So instead, I'm streaming like this again today until I can figure it out. I'm a Luddite. Technology. It's not my forte. I mean, I'm not too bad at it, but anyway, let's jump into the stories today. Tel Aviv protests again against soaring living costs. So Tel Aviv, that's in Israel, for those who don't know. They're hitting the streets now. They're protesting against soaring cost of living over there. Not a surprise, not a shock. And like I said, we're going to see more and more of these sorts of riots, protests, civil unrest events happen throughout the world for various reasons. People are pushed to the edge. We've come through a certain set of circumstances which is going to make people more prone towards protesting, towards getting out in the street, and now life is getting shittier. All the fancy things, the silver spoons and the gilded dummies that we've had in our mouths for many, many years now are getting taken out, and people are upset about that. We're going to have to live with less moving forward. The things that we get are going to cost more. We're going to be working harder for less goods here in the future. So people are not going to like that, and people in the Western world, as well as people all over the world, are going to start to throw up their arms and protest. In conjunction with that, one of my assessments here is that when we look back historically, what happens in more uncertain times, more times of warfare, more times of less. So I'm talking about when you look at historical depressions, economic type collapses of all sorts throughout time, increased warfare and food shortages. Those four in particular, as well as a number of other factors, generally what happens is you get increased civil unrest and people start rioting a lot more. So that's what we're going to see. One of the key factors in there is that when we see those factors come into the world, governments or governance, not necessarily governments as we know it today, but whoever's in charge, because it was maybe aristocracies or monarchies or whoever it has been historically who's in charge, become more authoritarian, and they grip down and push down on the public in general. So that's what we're going to see. That's where we're heading towards. We've had that over the last 2 years. That's going to increase in my assessment. This is my assessment of things, of stories like this. Increase in authoritarian governments means that we'll have an adverse, an equal and opposite reaction from the public who don't want to be held down, faces in the dirt, boot heels on the throat, as it were. And so we'll see more civil unrest. So that's kind of like the quick little snapshot of my assessment of what's happening in the world as far as civil unrest goes. We're going to see more of it. Brace yourself. US energy sector braces for supply crisis. So yet another country and yet another signal from the US that they're about to go through a lot more shortages. So this is coming out of Reuters, reported on Wednesday, that US power providers are facing supply shortages that stem from increased pressure on the grid due to record high temperatures as people use air conditioning. Okay, yeah, that's a factor. That's definitely a factor. We've had hot summers before, and people still had the same amount of air conditioners that we had last year or the year before or 5 years ago. So the fact that supply shortages because so many people are using air conditioners because it's so hot, like bullshit, wrong, like total lies. Not total lies. It's true because that is a factor. That's a huge factor. There is an increased demand right now in the US because of record high temperatures. However, we've been able to hold that off before. We as in the US, we as in the Western world, we as in developed countries have been able to deal with that with little to no effect. Yes, there's been blackouts in the past, but probably in the last 10, 15 years, little to no effect. So now they're coming out and they're saying, oh, well, it's because of these record high temperatures and everyone's using the air conditioning. It's like, yes, that's part of it. It's also because of the asinine governance that we've had in the policies that have come in over the last 2 years in across the board, 2 to 5 years, where we've seen consistently developed countries really undercutting and destroying our own infrastructure, not planting in enough forethought and time and money spent into actual infrastructures that are going to work, neglecting our old infrastructures and saying that us just moving away from an old infrastructure is going to make the world green and better and beautiful. Well, no, it's not because we still have the demand there. So we still need that. Just because you're giving up coal or nuclear or whatever doesn't mean that electricity is going to come out of the fucking ether, because it's not, unfortunately. Perhaps there is technologies of that, and I'm sure there'll be somebody who's watching right now and going, whoa, Tesla found that, or Wilhelm Reich found that back in the 1950s. There is energy in the ether. Okay, maybe there is, but we don't have it. We don't have ready access to it right now. So if you want to go and make that technology, go do it. I would really like you to do that, but we don't have that. And so what we do have right now is a shortfall between coal, between fossil fuels, between nuclear being fucked off, being pushed out because Greta said so, and a shortfall with the current renewable technology systems that we have. And that's why we're seeing this sort of stuff. So it just really irks me when I see this and they go, oh, this is Putin's fault, or this is, because people were using too many air conditioners. I'm like, are there people out there eating this, like consuming this information, going like, yep, that sounds right. Yeah, yep. Like if you're one of those people, like, hey, I'm going to give you a gentle slap across the face this morning and just say, just wake up to what's going on here. There are no simple solutions anymore. There are no simple issues anymore. Everything is multifaceted. We've built complexity into our systems to a point now where we can't just sit here and go, oh, well, it's easy. It's black and white. It's this thing. Here we have air conditioners. Oh, it's people should be able to do whatever they want with their bodies, including having abortions. It's like, well, where's the nuance here? Let's discuss this. Let's pull this apart, because there's yes and there's no, and there's maybes, and there's this condition if this, and this condition if that. Let's actually start to articulate that, and then we can get a fuller, rounder answer, which actually appeases more people for all situations here. All right, enough ranting, Stuart. Continue on with the stories. Protests in Germany as well. They've had a number of protests, but the latest ones are about arms supplies going into Ukraine. Obviously, they're struggling. The people are starting to get afraid. That's what I'm seeing around the world. People are starting to really, after having years now, 3 years almost, of just being force-fed fear like a foie gras duck. Our livers are ready for the harvesting. And what's happening here is people are starting to vomit up this fear. Like, it's starting to hit the streets. People are freaking out, and they're going, hey, wait a minute. Why are we giving billions of dollars to Ukraine to fight this war when we're struggling to get electricity into our homes? When with the coming winter, we could be facing people freezing to death in Germany, in one of the most developed countries in the world. Like, this is the edge of the spear. This is the tip of the spear, Germany, as far as developed countries go. This is one of the peak countries that we're looking at. And people are freaking out because they're not going to have enough wood to burn. I'll get to that as well. Mass protests against India's water aggression in Bangladesh. This is not a new one, by the way, but this is increased in size and scope, and it's coming out again. So Dhaka residents, Dhaka is the capital of Bangladesh. I've been there. I like to call Bangladesh and Dhaka in particular the armpit of the world. It's like sweaty and smelly, and I can't get around that place. Anyway, residents marched against India's water policies concerning Bangladesh after deadly floods reignited a long-standing dispute over resources between the two nations. So this isn't about them restricting water. It's about how they're diverting water. Bangladesh is an extremely low-lying country. I think, technically speaking, the vast majority of Bangladesh actually sits below sea level. Please correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think it's at sea level or just below sea level. So they're actually at real danger of flooding it at drop of a hat. Drop of a hat. I was over there during some horrific floods and a refugee crisis coming in from the Rohingya people over in Burma, or now known as Myanmar. And there was huge flooding they were coming in through Cox's Bazar. That place was just mud. It was just a mud pit. And it was just really horrific to watch. But that whole country is just inundated with water at any given moment. So they're up in arms against it. This has historically been, a friction point in the world. India, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan. If you don't know the history behind these countries, it's worthwhile, getting a bit of a take on it so you can understand what's actually going on there. It's much more complex and multifaceted than we think, and it does kind of stem from British rule and British mismanagement in a way. I want to say this: British potentially did some very, very good things over in that part of the world, and they have definitely done some very, very bad things. One of them was separating out the people, going like, okay, you're Hindu, well, you can be here in India. I'm going to draw a line on the map. You're Islam, go up there, go over to Pakistan. So dislocated a whole lot of people. A lot of people got got put out, became basically refugees. It created a massive amount of tension. Same down in Bangladesh, who seceded from India later on. But that's just a quick snapshot. It's worthwhile looking into this sort of area so we can deeper understand what the frictions are in this area. Because essentially, then you fast forward a number of years as we're going along. A country like Pakistan goes, well, we're having aggression with India. We've disputed this part of the world, Kashmir. We know we can't beat India in a fight, in a stand-up fight. We cannot beat India. India would actually be very hard to beat. Just FYI, we cannot do it. We need to even out this playing field. Nuclear weapons. Bam, they get nuclear weapons. India looks at that and goes, whoa, we don't like those guys. We're having beef with them. They've got nuclear weapons. Nuke us up. And that's how we get to today, where we've got these two countries, which a lot of people don't think about a lot, have been in a state of a nuclear cold war for decades now. Anyway, so more protests, and I'm just pointing out these protests again to highlight that we are going into this world where we're going to have more protests. We're going to have more civil unrest. All right, let's just quickly take the ride. I see this story. I will get to that. You're talking about the Illinois attack, and I will get to that story. I foreshadowed that first thing up this morning when I was saying Happy 4th of July to everyone. Over there. I'll circle back around to it, I swear. But just quickly, Saudi Arabia may be in discussions to join the BRICS. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. alliance, and I've talked about this quite a bit, this alliance and how it's forming into a new world. If Saudi Arabia does do that, it's huge. I can't stress this enough. I'm not really going to go into it today, but this is one of the key OPEC countries. This is one of the key sources of fuel and links with the US in the Middle East, which I've talked about heaps before. It is a powder keg at the moment. Middle East is a powder keg. This could shift the power in the world. This could shift world power. That's how big of a deal this is. So there's not a lot of energy in this. This could change the entire global energy space. Not a lot of information coming out about it, but I will keep my eye on that one for you. And it's worthwhile you keeping your eye on it too. Foreign Minister Lavrov from Russia, the Russian foreign minister, has been chatting with the Venezuelan foreign ministry. They've been doing some handshake deals. So I've talked about Venezuela before. Again, one of the most sanctioned countries on the world, Venezuela, Iran, now Russia. These countries are forming into an alliance of almost no choice. Where else are they going to go? You back them into a corner, USA. So, all right, we weren't picked for your dodgeball team. We'll form our own one. And that's what's happening. If you don't think that's a big deal, go and have a look at who the biggest current producers of crude oil are in the world and who is sitting on the highest reserves, so the most underneath their landmass in the world. And Venezuela will factor into both of those. They have a huge amount of oil. So that's a big deal. All right. I just want to talk about quickly over in Europe. I'll talk again about this. I mentioned this yesterday, and then I got a message from one of my sources over in Europe. And they are talking about what's going on with the energy crisis and how people are looking forward to winter, not looking forward to it, but looking forward in the future with doom to winter and stocking up of wood. So, and I quote, we are stocking up on wood for the winter early. We are lucky to have an efficient fireplace to supplement heating. Prices right now went from, and I won't get into the prices, but the equivalent of $200 US to $300 US for wood. So, you know, a little bit of an increase there. Just as a heads up, just before I jumped on, I just took a delivery of wood here because I can't get out and cut my own wood right now. So I said I'll buy some. And I like doing that as well. I like buying wood off my local wood producers because, again, it's the economy, stupid. You put money into your local economy, it encourages people to continue doing stuff that serves their local community. So I just did that. I just dropped $500. Like it's I was like, okay, it should be enough wood to hopefully last the family. I'm hoping through the winter with a little bit more supplements here and there, but you know, that's a lot that we're paying for. That's Australia, you know. I've got wood everywhere here. Anyway, this person said they're expecting the price to increase more heading into winter. So they've already seen a jump of 50% in their wood prices, and they're expecting it to go up. And this is in a country, this person's in a country that's not Germany. This is in a country that actually still has a lot of large wooded areas. Germany obviously has been urbanized like the rest of the developed world. They do have forests. I've been in the forests of Germany before, but getting access to like large amounts of wood is probably a bit more problematic in Germany. So yeah, that's the situation, what it's looking like over there. What else have we got? All right, I'll jump into this story. It's here now in front of me. Oh no, it's not. Where'd it go? Okay, another mass shooting event in the US. So this is coming out of a place called Highland Park in Illinois, which is up the north, central sort of northish, north part of the USA. Chicago is I think Chicago is the capital of Illinois. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it is. And Chicago is obviously known for a lot of shootings. In fact, because I stay abreast of this sort of stuff and I'm always looking at shooting events, there's been a number of shooting events that have actually happened in and around Chicago in the past 72 hours that were not reported on at all. Why? Because it's not deemed a mass shooting event and it wasn't done by a right-wing extremist. It was gangland shootings. I'm like, well, there's still mass shootings and there's still information that can help people be safer. If we know what happens, we can look at what the modus operandi or what's happening or what the trends are, and we can better protect ourselves because then we know what to look for. And so the fact that like that kind of information, because it's deemed gangland shooting, is not put into the mainstream media, I think is tantamount to, I guess, what would I call it? It's like a duty of care. It's a failure in a duty of care by news agencies to not report on that sort of stuff. Any sort of mass shooting, any sort of mass attack of any sort doesn't necessarily need to be shooting, just usually is in the US. But it could be a vehicle ramming attack. It could be an IED attack, an improvised explosive device attack. It could be absolutely anything. Knife attacks, all that sort of stuff. It's best for us to know these sorts of things, to understand them. Okay, so on with this story here. Latest reports that I have seen. Now, Take the Ride from the US is saying on YouTube that 6 people in Chicago, Illinois got shot in a July 4th parade today and over 30 injured. 19 or, well, yeah, it's the person who did the shooting. I'm trying to trend away from like talking about the shooter. It's worth knowing information about the shooter, and right now I think that shooter might still be at large. So if for some reason you happen to be watching this and you are in the area, please stay safe. Please keep your eye out for this individual. But as much as possible, I don't want to ramp up. Sometimes, part of the psychology of why these attacks happen is the person wants to be infamous. They want to be known. They want their name out there. They don't care how they do it. So I'm not going to propagate that by putting names out there of these individuals. I just would rather them rot without anyone knowing ever who they were. Anyway, some latest reports that I've got have said up to 8 dead, somewhere in between 26 injured, and I've seen over 30 injured. So we're saying about that 30 injured mark, at least 24 in hospital. So somewhere between 6 to 8 people have been shot dead. Somewhere around 30 are injured and in hospital. It was at a 4th of July celebration. Obviously, the US right now is celebrating its independence, where they overthrew the British Empire, who were trying to get them to pay too much taxes, which I think's beautiful. Really, I think it's one of the most beautiful stories that I've ever heard. True story. The funny thing about it is, if you go and look at how much tax they were asking them to pay, and then look at how much tax we pay today, it's like we should be having 10 times the amount, at least, of these sort of rebellions and overthrowing our governments. But yeah, we don't. Anyway, 4th of July, gatherings of people. This is the sort of stuff that I talk about all the time. And I was just saying this yesterday, actually. I was saying, look, a public space to me is synonymous with a threat space. Whenever we're in a public space, humans are an issue. Humans are always an issue. Always an issue. Doesn't matter what the other circumstances are. Human beings will always remain a potential threat. So when we're out around a public space with humans about, we just need to increase our attention. We need to increase our situational awareness when we're around these sort of situations. The other thing I want to throw into this as well is first aid, and especially traumatic first aid, or high threat environment first aid, or combat first aid, whatever you want to call it. It's something that I've been taught in. It's something that I teach other people about, and it's something that I highly recommend. Go and do a course in this sort of stuff. It's not that hard once you wrap your head around it. It's different from civilian first aid, but that's a good first step. If you don't know any first aid, go do the bloody St. John's first aid, or whoever the local provider is for you. Go and do it. Do it today. All right, that first aid is one of the most important things that you could do as a prepper, as a preparedness-minded person, somebody who looks forward and says, yes, there could be an emergency. Yes, there could be a disaster. I could be in and around it. I could be involved in it. I could be the one who's actually injured. It behooves every single one of us as self-reliant human beings, as people who want to be an asset, not a liability, to go and learn basic first aid, and then to go and learn advanced first aid, to go and learn remote area first aid, to go and learn trauma first aid or combat type first aid, to delve into this as deep as we can. And then take it to whatever extension you want. Like, I went and studied in the health sciences. I'm a sports and exercise scientist. But as part of that, it's learning anatomy. It's learning like systemic anatomy. It's learning how body systems work. It's learning how the human machine fits together and how it operates well. And then I use that information when I'm doing first aid, and I reference back to that, because now I can problem solve a bit better. I understand how this thing roughly works. So that's something that I highly recommend to people, is go out and do first aid stuff, learn how to use tourniquets. If you're ever in and around a situation like this, some sort of shooting attack, then this is where it would come into its own. This stuff saves lives, 100%. Okay, and that's why it is TECC. Look that up. TECC protocols, or what it used to be called TCCC protocols. Either, but this is a set of protocols for combat like soldiers and things like that, that's been brought up through Afghanistan, through Iraq conflicts, and tested in the field, and it works. So yeah, have a look at that. Traumatic emergency casualty care, I think it is. Trauma emergency casualty care. Used to be a combat in there somewhere. Anyway, look it up, TECC. Take the ride. They don't talk about how many shootings there are in Chicago every week. There's been like 19,000 shootings since January 1st, and 700 people have died. Really? Not 19,000, surely. 1,900? 19,000 shootings? Far out. Obviously, like, and the thing is, like, why this stuff isn't reported on, again, is because most of it is deemed to be gang-related violence. Maybe that doesn't sell newspapers. I don't know. This is the world we live in, hey? Let's jump back over to Germany now. Germany gas giant Uniper, which is a huge company that pumps gas through, is in bailout talks. They're going down. They're in bailout talks with the government to the tune of 9 billion euros. So it's not just like, oh, look, we're not going to be able to make this payment this month. You know, can you just compass rent this week? No, it's 9 billion euros. It's like, that's a hole that I don't know how they're going to dig their way out of. This is obviously in conjunction and because of and intertwined with the Russian gas shortage going with the US. What else is happening over in Europe? Italy declares a state of emergency in 5 northern regions amid the worst drought in 70 years. In this northern, have a guess at what one of the big things they produce in this northern part of Italy is. Food. Hey, if you guess that, you get a gold star. Not really. It should be so obvious now. Everything keeps coming back to food at the moment. But yeah, Italy's, like, their drought's so bad, they've declared a state of emergency. That's a pretty big deal. Pretty big deal for what's going on there. Riots are going on in around, where is this? Akron, which is where? Somewhere in the US. If you haven't seen, like, my feed's been absolutely filled with it, with this video of a couple of police shooting a suspect. So there was a suspect that they pulled over who allegedly shot at them from the car and then ran, who'd been allegedly involved in some armed robberies. They chased him down. You can see the body cam footage, and then shoot this person up. And person was of African descent, which then obviously instigated the riots that we'll see almost every time this sort of stuff happens now. So there have been civil unrest and riots around this area as well, and the security forces have been engaging them with counter-riot measures, i.e. gas, sending out the gas. Get that gas mask. You know I love them. What else is happening in the world? Oh man, that's a scary one. I'll leave that to the end. 3 dead as killer Hurricane Bonnie. That's a really nice name for a hurricane, isn't it? Killer Hurricane Bonnie sweeps towards Mexico. So it's just come up through Central America. It's hit El Salvador, Nicaragua, and it is flying towards Mexico right now. There's already 3 dead in its path, causing swells, like coastal swells, 120k winds, heaps of lethal surf and rip conditions. In Australia, we call that Tuesday. And the Mexico's meteorological service is saying that they're going to have up to 5-meter waves pounding into their shores, intense rainfall, mudslides, and flooding. So if you're any of my Mexican amigos out there, if you're in and around Mexico, and I don't know why you're listening to me, but if you are, thank you for starters for listening. But keep yourself safe. Make sure that you're planning for these sort of epic storm events. That's coming in now. And again, more on the way. Hurricane season is abound in this part of the world, so take care out there. What else we got here? All right, just some interesting stuff. A Hong Kong politician tests positive COVID after hanging around with Xi Jinping, the CCP leader, the beloved leader. That was just an interesting one to me. I was like, that's interesting. Here's a leader who is clearly terrified of COVID, wants to eradicate COVID from his country with this insane COVID zero policy, which is never going to work. I'd like to see if he gets it or not. Staying with COVID sort of stuff. Can I say COVID or am I going to get banned? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I've said it now. In Uruguay says a judge has ordered Pfizer to provide extensive details on the biochemical composition and evidence of efficacy and safety of its vax. Within 2 days, within 48 hours, he's given them. So that's an interesting one. I'd like to see how that one comes down to, what comes out of that, and if that will have any implications worldwide. It's pretty easy for this sort of stuff, people to go like, oh yeah, but that's a backwater Uruguay, like South America, who cares? I'd like to see how this falls out. It'll be interesting also if I do see if anything comes of it, because quite often information like this comes out and people are like, we don't really want to, no, I don't want to be looking at that. We won't reprint that one. All right, here's where I'm going to end off today. Chinese researchers claim they have built and tested artificial intelligence capable of reading minds. Welcome to the Minority Report. So a new report has claimed that the Chinese government is now implementing cutting-edge artificial intelligence to monitor the minds of dozens of Communist Party individuals. That's kind of terrifying. It's not kind of terrifying, it's extremely terrifying if it's true. And it's, for me, I look at this sort of stuff and I'm like, this isn't beyond the realm of possibility. Artificial intelligence, algorithms, things like that have been increasing in their ability to predict human behavior for a long time now. And some would argue even more so than humans could, especially if you read books like Homo Deus and things like that, from, what's that dude's name? Yuval Noah Harari or something? I can't remember the dude's name. Anyway, Homo Deus, interesting read. Lots of doom and gloom, really. Well, the way I read it, at least, this person's going, hey, look, this is the trends that we've been seeing. This is where we're probably going towards in the future. And I look at that and go, ooh, I don't want to go there. So yeah, these algorithms are very good at predicting human behavior, and apparently Chinese artificial intelligence is now doing it to a high degree, reading minds, which is pretty terrifying when they start going like, you get the knock on the door, police rock up and say, hey, look, we're going to have to take you in for questioning. Like, I haven't done anything. Well, no, but the algorithm has said that you are statistically highly likely to do something within the next week. So we're actually going to lock you down in a jail cell until then. That's where I see this sort of stuff happening. Sorry, I didn't put my tinfoil hat on before I started talking about this one. This is a tinfoil hat conversation, in case you hadn't noticed. I don't often get into the tinfoil hat stuff, but just for my tinfoil hat brigade people out there, we're gonna open this can of worms. So there you have it. China apparently reading minds now. Terrifying stuff. Terrifying stuff. I always believe, again, being a bit of a Luddite and probably leaning more towards the Amish way of life when I can. I always put faith in human beings' ability to do things outside of what a computer could possibly predict. The chaos theory, our individual spirit, I guess would be the best way to describe it, is something that can never be predicted and can never be locked down into something as sterile as an algorithm. So stay strong out there. Keep human, y'all. Keep it up. Some of it will happen. Yeah. I've got a few people that I follow, conspiracy theorists. I think the theory is now just a shotgun approach where people just put out like many different theories, and then one of them comes through. They're like, see, we're right. Bam. Now you have to listen to everything I say. Don't listen to everything everyone says. That's my tip for today. All right, well, I'm going to wrap it up there for today. So thank you again for joining me today, the 5th of July, 2022. As always, if you've got any questions, please feel free to send them through to me. Look at that, 36 minutes. I'm keeping it shorter today. Yeah, thanks for joining me today. Really appreciate it. Any questions, send them through to me. You can also, actually, somebody reached out on the Telegram, on the Ragnarok Survival Telegram the other day, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot this was here. That's another way you can send me questions if you want. If you don't want to do it through Instagram or through YouTube or whatever, jump on Telegram, look up Ragnarok Survival, and send me messages there. But that is it for today. So keep up all the good work, and remember that, like, the picture that I'm trying to paint here is the world is not a place filled with doom and gloom, but sometimes shit happens. And sometimes of that small percentage of when shit happens in the world, a very, very small percentage, you might be actually involved in it. So remember, keep your eyes open out there. Remember to be walking around in the world with situational awareness, with an understanding of what is transpiring around you. At the very least, you will be able to react quicker. But my hope is that you'll be able to see things before they happen, and even better than a Chinese AI, you'll be able to avoid being in those areas altogether. That's the best way. The best way to win a fight, no be there, Daniel-san. Do not be in a fight. That's the best way to win a fight. So that's what I'm going to leave you with today. As always, guys, stay safe, keep prepping, and Semper Paratus.